Friday, Mind Shift Friday. Every Friday, we bring you interesting conversations. We try and look at things we hear about, or things we say, or things we have believed, but from different perspective, and ask ourselves, do we need a mind shift where this topic and this subject is concerned today? We are focusing on the women, and we are asking ourselves the question, helper or ruler? Or is it both? Or is it none? Which is which? Today we get to hang out with the Audacity coach. This is Wairimu Kahoro. How are you doing?
I'm fine, James. How are you doing?
I'm very fine. Karibu sana.
Asante. Thank you for having me.
It's good to have you on board today. Later on, we may be joined by Rosemary. I think she was having a bit of trouble connecting, but we are trying to sort that out. So let's jump right into it. This helper thing, you know, we get it from the Bible, the book of Genesis. I will give him a helper. But what does that mean? What does a helper mean?
Yeah, I think truly a helpmate is a support system. It's a place of power.
Mm-hmm.
It's a strength, somebody to strengthen you, somebody to support you, because you can't do it by yourself.
Yes.
You know, because at that time Adam was alone. The animals weren't helping him. You know, he didn't have anyone. He was just alone.
Yeah.
And so God made him aware that he couldn't do it on his own.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where he needed a helpmate suitable for him, not for everybody else, just for him.
Just for him.
Yeah.
You know, I keep asking myself this question, and maybe I'll pose it to you, Irimo. If you're looking for a helper, somebody to help you do something, accomplish something, would you look for a weak person or for a strong person?
Definitely strong person.
And
especially in line with where you're going, you look for somebody who can support you get there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you don't take a weak person. It's just like employment. You don't hire the worst person for a job. You hire the best qualified person for that job.
And so then it makes sense that if God was to give Adam a helper, he would not give Adam somebody weak.
No.
And the reason I'm asking the reason I'm asking that question is because we have this notion that you know, the Bible says the woman is the weaker, but sometimes I think we look at that weaker from a very twisted perspective, because if really she is a helper, then she has to be strong in order to help. Otherwise, if she's coming in to help and she's weak, she becomes part of the problem and not a solution.
It's true, and it will just pull him down from where he was going, so that he'll take time training instead of just having somebody who is fully qualified to do that work. I think we are, as women, physically, we are weak. I mean, except those who go to the gym, but generally, we are physically weaker. But that doesn't mean that mentally or health-wise we are weak. And so what happens is, and I remember this, in fact, Pastor James, when I used to be young and I hear submission in a wedding, I walk out. So I was like, funny, how long will we be made to look like servants or slaves? That's not what God is saying. God is saying that his work is not complete without the woman on earth. And for those he has called into marriage, he has given husbands a suitable person for the vision that he has given them to accomplish.
So if I'm getting you right, Wairimo, you talk about vision. So if I don't have a vision, if I have nothing I'm doing, I don't need a helper, do I?
No, but I think everybody has a vision. But what maybe you don't know that you have, and this person comes and brings out the best in you, and you start seeing God's perspective. You start seeing, oh, this is why I'm here. So that's why women have a big picture mentality, and so they make you see that you're good for something, because as husbands, if you do not have somebody to validate you, to affirm you, and to help you know that you can do this, you would probably not do too much.
I've seen two extremes when we talk about this discussion. I've seen the extreme where the helper is so suppressed, they have no voice, you know, they're just there to fulfill tasks, so to speak. And I've seen the other swing end of the pendulum, where the helper is now competing, and the helper says, whatever you can do, I can do better. and the helper wants to take over. Yeah. Talk to us about these two extremes.
Okay, so let me start with the one which most people fear, because they fear the empowerment of women and get intimidated. But I'll say this. One of the things that happened to Eve in the Garden of Eden after the sin, God said two things. Number one, the woman will have a child. She'll feel pain when she's giving birth to a child. But the second one, God said that she will desire her husband. That part of desiring is like we will want to control our husband. So it's kind of in the wiring to want to control the husband. But that's the place of submission now, where like you know what should be done, but this guy is not getting it, and you don't want to be disrespectful. So there are women who now, instead of being dependent on God to know how to wisely advise the husband, then they just come over and just take control because he's slow. Some of them are slow. So and that control is something that, for lack of a better word, if you do not yield to Christ, it can come off and really again bring down your husband, because this is submission is a husband-wife thing, not a men-women thing. And then the women who are suppressed is because the husband is so insecure that he needs to be puffed up by a woman who is not talking back. So I think the woman who is being controlling is because the husband is not doing anything, and the one who is a bit suppressed in voice is because the husband is so insecure and afraid that the person that he is will be exposed, or that he won't feel manly if he has a wife who is advising him on something that he can do.
Okay, so let's go back to this word helper and trying to unpack it and fully understand, when we talk about a helper, what exactly are we talking about? Because now we have two people here. There's this one who came in first, Adam, and God has spoken to him and God has directed him in what he needs to do. And then God looks back and he says, it's not good for him to be alone. He needs a suitable helper for him. And God creates the woman. So what are the roles of these two people? Because it's easy to say helper, but what really does that mean? How does this helper function? How do the two fit in together? Because then if the roles are not clearly understood, then there'll be friction. And as, I don't know who said this, I don't know whether it was Miles Monroe or whoever, says when the purpose of something is not known, abuse is inevitable. So when you don't know the role of your helper, you will abuse them. Or if the helper does not understand their role, they will abuse themselves and allow themselves to be abused. And if this other individual, the man, doesn't understand his role as well, then it becomes one big mess. So what's the role of each of these two individuals?
Yeah. Okay, first I need to say that women were not an afterthought. It's not that God created man, then he was like, by the way, I think he can't do this alone.
Yes.
She was in the plan, but Adam needed to be aware he cannot do this alone. He cannot hear God the same way. We hear God differently. For the woman, she's sensitive to the voice of God. And that's why in a home, you'll find a lot of women are the ones who are going to church, participating in church, because the way they hear the voice of God is different. And for them, and I have to say this, I was one of those skeptics of marriage. So even when I was invited, I was like, I don't know, best guest or not. But when I understood the place of the man in terms of responsibility, the responsibility is being given is not one of those you go and brag everywhere. It's a place of humility, and he's being told now, lead these people just the way they are. And so I think a helpmate first understands where are you going? What do you want to achieve? And the best way is, let's think of an office. A company has a vision and it has a mission. It has a place where it's going. It has the solution it's offering. So when you bring people into your company, you're saying, I can't do this. So I think in a marriage is these two individuals, as they are dating and as they are courting, is to say, where are you feeling God leading you? Where are you feeling God leading you? And when they come into partnership, then everybody says, this is what I'm best at. This is the strength I'm bringing to the table. And he says, this is the strength. And then he's the one now who takes the vision of the family to God. And he's the one who leads in that way for the family to accomplish that vision, the purposes. I think roles depend, I think, family by family. But of course, the woman brings the emotional side of the home. The husband brings the strategic part of the home. But in some homes, you'll find that also a bit, depending on how you are raised and the environment, the perspective you bring to your family is different. But I think for the most part, which is where I had refused that a man can be a leader until you read the Bible and see it is given. It is not something debatable, but it's not something for him to abuse that role.
Exactly.
It is for him to influence the family into action.
I like that.
Yeah.
Okay. Do you have any questions for us today? Ladies, I'm expecting lots of questions from your end today as we talk about with the woman, helper or ruler, or both, or none. Talk to me. 20316 SMS line, WhatsApp number 0786 316 316. I've got several questions. Maybe we can look at them before we continue. This one is coming in from Mombasa. Billy in Mombasa is saying, can you please elaborate further where you said the wife brings the emotional part in the family and the husband plays the strategic part? What exactly do you mean by that?
I think the woman brings heart into a relationship. She brings, and that's why we weren't asked to love our husband, because it is natural. We don't force it. Loving is nurturing, and wanting people to be happy around us is something that we were wired with. The husband wants to win for the family, protect the family. So he has to be strategic in that way. He has to think about how will I make my family have what they need. So in that way, because strategy is all about having a competitive edge. So what makes your family be able to get the things that you desire and to accomplish what you want as a family? So while in today's environment, unlike that time where women did not have the education or the means, now it's a bit easier for us to work together as husband and wife. But the wife also brings compassion. She brings heart, so that if something is going to not benefit everybody, she's going to say, I think that is not going to help. Even the way sometimes our husbands talk to the children, the husband will say, don't talk to the children. She brings the heart. That's what I meant.
Okay. This one is coming in from Eve. No, from Nyambura. Nyambura is saying, please address this perspective. Interesting one, this one. She says, the work was given to Adam. The woman was to help where needed. When did all the work become the woman's?
Oh gosh, I think society has changed. And yes, man was already working before he was made aware he can't do everything by himself. And that's why if you do not know what it is you're meant to do, then the helpmate will come and just sit because you don't know where you need the help. I think in these times, we cannot just have everybody staying at home. You will talk. And that's why I'm saying the strategic leadership has to be, a spouse says, I can work and provide for this family. But then you're very clear about the role that you're bringing in each and every one of the families. Why aren't husbands or our husbands today working as well? Upbringing. If you are soothed when you are young and you are not taught your role as the boy in providing, in securing, in loving as well, because that's not natural, then you will not do it in a marriage. It doesn't just come. Is it learned? Yes, it is learned, but it doesn't just come. And that's why when we were growing, our grandparents always had women raising women and the men raising men, so that everybody grows up knowing the strength they are bringing into society.
Okay.
So now that is broken down a little bit, and we have to train each other so that everybody knows they are bringing value. Women need to know their worth, that they are bringing worth into the relationship. All of us are operating from a place of strength in our marriages. We shouldn't look down on each other.
Okay. Let me ask you a question. Scenario here, where you have a wife who, outside here in the corporate world, she's a very strong leader. She has got power and position. I mean, she's among the movers and the shakers. And we have quite a number of women who are in those kind of positions, and we celebrate them. But then now she comes home. The husband is the leader, yes, but he is not a very strong leader. And sometimes you feel like this man of mine is slowing us down. How do you handle a situation like that without it becoming a situation where both of you are trying to assert your power and authority in the home.
Yeah. In the Ephesians passage, using the Message version, it says, wives, support and understand your husband. So that's the command given to us, the honoring the husband, that even if we feel he doesn't deserve any honor, that's the place we have been given in marriage as unto Christ, because sometimes we forget it's as unto Christ.
Yes.
So say having a position in the workplace, you're using your strength there. When you come to the home, for the home to function well, you have to understand and you have to support your husband. You have to elevate him, because if you put him down, then he's not going to operate at his best. Is it easy? For sure not, because both husbands and wife were given the harder thing to do. We were told to respect our husbands, to support them, to understand them. And the husbands were told to love, which is the harder thing, to love another.
Yeah.
It has to be intentional. So both of us were given something intentional so that we are dependent on Christ. And that's why, if you don't understand the part of God in a marriage, then you'll always do everything by your own strength. And if wives were told to love the husbands, I keep saying that's so easy, we do it anyway. We were commanded to do the opposite, the thing that where we'll need God to support him, to understand him, even if we feel he doesn't deserve it.
Yeah. I like that perspective. That's a good perspective. There's another question here. This one is asking if the wife's job is to help the man in his vision. Does this mean that the wife cannot bring her vision into the family? Does it mean that the wife is solely there to just support the man? She doesn't have dreams and aspirations herself?
Yeah. No, it's a family vision. It's a family vision that he takes before God, because God has given the husband the authority over the home, which means he's the one accountable to God for how the home is operating. In fact, the Bible says that he will present his wife like without blemish before God. And I keep saying, for me, that's a place where when I understood submission, I was like, I don't want to stand before God and say my wife, she's been so happy, she has had no problem, she is loved. And so you have to discuss and say, this is where I want to grow as wife. When my husband says this is where he wants to grow, and we merge our dreams together so that then we have a plan for our home. In fact, when we are submitting to him, we are submitting to the plan that we both have together.
Yeah.
And that's what he submits before the Lord and says, Lord, on behalf of our family, we bring our desires and our dreams, aspirations before you.
Nikuulize swali ngumu.
Niulize.
There's a hard question here from Gavi. Gavi is asking, okay, what about a scenario where the wife is called to be a pastor and the husband is not? He's just a Kawaii believer. Is she having the vision, or is the man the one having the vision? Who is the helper here and who is the leader here? And there are different schools of thought where such a scenario is concerned. There are those who are of the viewpoint that that cannot be the case. The wife cannot be the pastor and the husband is not. There are those who will say that is not biblical. There are those who will say, well, that kind of a scenario is allowed. So that scenario, how do you handle it? Nani anasaidia mwingine hapa? Nani ndio kiongozi?
I think our understanding of health is always pick the salt, clean. That's our idea of when we are saying helpmate.
Yes.
We assume that's what we are saying. Those are just regular things to do at home. I don't think God was like, when we create woman, we are creating her to wash dishes and pick after the husband. I think it was a place of power. It was a position not less than. It's just a different perspective. So for the one where the wife is a pastor, if that's her calling, if they have both prayed and the Holy Spirit has confirmed that that's the work she was created to do, she should do it. And that's where supporting each other. The man is told, love your wife as Christ loved the church. And gave himself up. So husbands should kind of die to their desires and uplift their wives as well. And that's why I'm saying, while this submission debate has been made to look like it's I should not think and you should tell me everything I should do, we both complement each other. He loves me and he's to a position of death where he can say, listen, this is what I wanted, but let me uplift you. And that's the part in that relationship where there's a wife who wants to be a pastor, the husband is supposed to die to his own plan in that point and help his wife, love his wife enough to allow her to serve God in the way that she has been called.
Let's talk about the dreaded S word, submission.
Yeah.
What is this submission? I had a very interesting description of submission in marriage. Let me submit it to you. Tell me if you agree with it or you have a different perspective of submission. This lady was saying, supposing you as a wife, you want to go for a trip and you go to your husband and you tell your husband, I want to go for this trip, and your husband says no. Your husband is the one financing the trip and he says no, and you say, okay, since he said no, what else can I do? Inaishi hapo. And then the other scenario is you have the money, you have the means, you don't need any kind of financial support from your husband to do this trip, and you go to your husband and you say, by the way, I'm thinking of taking a trip to place A, B, and C, and he says, I don't think it's the right time, I don't think you should do it, and you say, okay. This lady was saying the second one has submitted, and she was saying, if you don't have power, you can't submit. You only submit when you have power, because you're laying down your power, you know, for the sake of this other person's viewpoint or direction or whatever. I don't know if you agree with that or you have a different perspective of what this dreaded S word means.
I am with every woman who may be listening. The S word is very scary, but I think it's because of the way it's presented.
Yes.
Let me start with the church. The church submits to Christ. Why? He loved us. He died for us. So easy. We are not forced into salvation. You yield, you submit into salvation and say, this Jesus loved me so much. He left his position of power to come and die for me. Now let's bring that into marriage, because that's what Paul uses. He uses Christ, and then he says, we are the bride of Christ. And he takes care of us. He loves us. So that when he says, Wairimo, don't do this, I will not do, because I know he loves me and I trust that the decision that he's choosing is for my good. And so in a place where the wife is asked by the husband not to go, I think we usually assume the husband should just say, don't go. I've said you don't go. He should just say why. He's saying, don't go. But again, at the end of the day, we are told to understand, support. Is it always going to be easy? No. But and that's where they should then love us enough to say, I would have wanted you this weekend, but just go. Does it always happen that way? No, because our understanding of submit is obey, and that's not what submission is. Submission is yielding to, it's trusting. It's a place of trust. It's not a forced place. While it is written as a command, it is written from a place of trust. The reason we are in salvation is because we trust that when Jesus says, when I die, I'll go to heaven, I trust. So anything he tells me to do, I will do from a point of submission. So we are told the way we submit to Christ is the way we should submit to our husband. So if our husband is telling us, go kill somebody, we will, because Christ cannot tell me to do that, I will not do that. So I think this one is that example that has been given is a relationship issue. It's not a biblical issue. Why is he saying no? Does it mean he doesn't trust that when you go for the girls' trip, that you're going for a girls' trip? You know? And that's the place of, we are told don't serve God and money. You can't. It's either God or money. So just because I have more money than my husband, or I can afford to go for the trip, doesn't mean now I lord over everybody around me. I have to treat my husband with the dignity he deserves in the same way he's doing for me.
There's a key word you spoke about in your submission as you're trying to explain to us this, and I think it's very important. You talked about trust. You mentioned it several times. You know, where there's no trust, submission is a struggle. It is a huge struggle. But where there's trust, the reason why you said it yourself, the reason why we submit to Christ is because we trust him. And it's because also he is faithful. That is why we trust him. He is faithful. What he says he will do, he will do. And we know he has our best at heart. And he has already demonstrated that by laying down his life for us. And that's the example we are given. Husbands, love your wives as Christ loved the church, even giving himself to die for the church. Okay, before we run out of time, we live in a world today, even as we talk about helper or ruler, there's a lot of competition. between men and women. I really don't know how we got to this place. You know, what the man can do. I usually hear this statement, and I have a funny answer to it. You know, there are those women who say, what a man can do, a woman can do better. When I hear that statement, I usually say, yeah, right, try making another woman pregnant. That's impossible. So how did we get into this space, and how do we revert back to the balance it's supposed to be?
Okay, so this is what I can say. First of all, when we are believers, we have an unfair advantage because we know the relationship between Christ and his church.
Yes.
He loves his bride and he'll do anything for his bride. And so there's no competition. I'm like, whatever Christ wants me to do, I will do. When competition comes, because we don't have each other's good in mind, we are bringing selfish interests to the table. And so as long as we are operating from a place of selfish interest, it will always be me, 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 me. Marriage is a we. It's we win. If you do well, I win. If your wife does well, we are winning. It's not she's winning. Even if, so I think the competition came because we are operating our marriage from a worldly point of view. We are not using the godly biblical view where it's us. It's us taking over the world. It is not the world coming to our house and telling us what we are supposed to do. And like I said, the woman was already told she will want to control or rule over her husband. So, I mean, if you're not, submitting us unto Christ, then you will want to show your husband his matope, and that's not nice. Because, to be honest, James, men are fragile.
Oh, yeah.
You know? They are fragile. And so you're dealing with somebody who constantly needs to just be reminded, you are the head of the home, you are our leader. Don't injure his ego, because then you have no marriage. Uplift each other. The competition comes because we know we can injure and injure very well.
Yeah.
And especially where we have means as wives, very easily. And that's the place of understanding and supporting as unto Christ. By the submission is not self-driven. It is Christ. It's divine.
Yes.
We cannot do it by our own strength. It's all about God. There's a question that you said at the beginning, are we rulers or helpers? I think that all women in the world, just like men, were created to rule, because that's what the Bible says, that he gave them dominion and reign and rulership over all his resources and everything. Within a marriage, though, that's where now women are helpmates to their spouses. All women are not helpmates to men, they are helpmates to our spouse. That's why I'm made to be suitable for my husband, not for all other men in the world.
Yeah.
That's why he has to leave. We come and cleave because we are together, we collaborate, and we are a great team, powered by Christ.
I love that, and I love that. And I think for me, I can combine both of them so that we are saying the role of the woman and the wife is to rule together with her husband, because you are helping me to rule. So both of us are rulers. You know, yes, I take the lead, but you're helping me to rule, and we form a team that is just amazing. I'm out of time for today, Wairimu. Thank you so much for your insights and wisdom into this discussion. I'm sure somebody has found some answers to some questions they might have been having. Asante sana.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Our time is up for Mindship Friday.
Thank you for watching. Remember, subscribe to our YouTube channel so that you can get notified whenever we upload new fresh content every day. Stay tuned and enjoy fresh, uplifting content.